It's a Final Word Cricket podcast. Adam Collins and Jeff Lemon recording together. Series 11, Episode 12. It's the 11th of January. It's about as midsummer as you can get. We're sat outside. You're wearing a bluey singlet. I'm wearing a flannelette shirt. You're wearing... Are they shorts?
I guess they're shorts.
Or are they just boxer shorts? They're probably shorts. If
They're
you're watching
swimmers.
on YouTube, you can make your own decision.
Yep.
I'm still wearing black jeans and black shoes.
Of course
Call that a
Melbourne.
a packing mishap. Yes, I'm looking very Melbourne.
It's
given
just
we are in
Melbourneian. Black canvas shoes, black jeans, red and black flannel. Can't get any
Can't
more
go
Melbourne
wrong
than
with that. But we are here together. This might actually be the last time we record the weekly show together before I go back to London after the Hobart test. We'll see. Time will tell. We have got plenty to get through on the show today. Of course, there's one more test to go in the Ashes series. New Zealand have been playing Bangladesh in a series that's had a lot of interest, as has been the series in South Africa between the Proteas and India. The Women's Ashes starts next week. We've got stuff to share about Woodstock, about Brick Lane, about Nerd Pledge, about the Big Bash League. There's loads going on, and it's lovely to be sat here recording with you at a place that I've seen through the camera screen about 100 times through the English summer. I kind of thought it might be like a small balcony setup. You've got quite a nice little backyard here.
Yes, we've got a sizable yard, got a bunch of couches, got some AstroTurf. Needs to have some AstroTurf. That's compulsory Melbourne activity. Got the outside beer fridge for the brick lanes. Everything that you need. Lots of plants, lots of sunshine. Glorious day in Melbourne. And we had something that we enjoyed, which was a glorious last day draw. Nothing that tragics of the game like more than a last day. Last ball. Not all 4 results on the line, but still 2 results on the line coming down to the very last delivery of the test match.
Yeah, exactly right. I mean, sometimes you can get to the final half an hour or hour and there's 2 results and it's drifting. This didn't drift. It was, as we described on the Daily Show, it was a wonderful finish and has received a lot of plaudits accordingly. Some people get a bit upset when you talk about, what a great finish. They'll go, yeah, but Australia... That's the 3rd time they haven't bowled out a team at home in the 4th innings. Like, yeah, that's true, but I don't really care if Australia won or otherwise. I like the fact that it was a competitive test match that went down to the wire, and there is a beauty in a team that's outmatched, and England have been outmatched, doing enough to hold on. I remember Jason Holder's team came here in 15-16, and the Sydney test match was more or less washed out. Steve Smith, new captain, put to Holder before the morning of day 5. Let's both declare an innings and set up a chase, a la Hansi Cronje and the leather jacket, but without the leather jacket and without Hansi Cronje, and more sort of county cricket style. Let's both declare an innings and set up a chase. And Jason Holder at the time said, no, my team need to learn how to draw before we can start winning. And I feel kind of the same about England right now. They've got this rebuild going on. They're going to the Caribbean, and then they've got New Zealand at home, South Africa at home, one test against India at home. They're not going to be winning many test matches in the short term. They might do okay at home, but I mean, the truth is they're a team that's in crisis, maybe on the way to transition, and they need to find a way to learn how to not lose first, and they did that the other day. So
and equally, had Steve Smith taken a wicket off the last ball, it would also have been a great finish.
Exactly. Yeah,
so
exactly.
All of those things can be true. The result was the result, whatever it was, but having a live game all the way down to the end like that is exciting, and that's why we enjoy, when you've invested all of that time into it and then it delivers. That's the payoff.
Yeah, and I'm kind of fired up again about the series. It's a shame that it's 3-0 going to Hobart that's finishing this week, because I've had my enthusiasm for this series. I probably, if I'm honest...
Should be a 9-test series, frankly.
It should be 7.
I think they should expand it.
Well, we did joke and say it should be 7 like 1970-71, but they didn't listen to us.
No. This is like Death in the Bill and Ted movie, when he's like, best of 3, and then he loses at Twister and Monopoly, and then he's like, best of 5 and best of 7.
Yeah. Yeah, well, I mean, if I'm honest, I had lost a bit of energy after the Melbourne test, because I thought, well, they're going to lose 5-0. We're off to Sydney where it's COVID central, and we're all going to come back with coronavirus, and it's going to be over in 3 days, and we're going to have a terrible time. In the end, we both came back without coronavirus, and it was a good test match. So we're on the way to Hobart on the 13th, the day before that test.
We're going to win 5-0. We're going. It's one of the few moments of humour from the. I'll be frank here. Sometimes the English crowd support I find less than inventive. And not particularly exciting. But during 2013, when they played 2 series back to back, and England won the first 2 test matches over there, and the chant for those first 2 games was all, we're going to win 10-0, we're going to win 10-0. And then in the third test, when they finally called it off as a draw on the last day, like as soon as the announcement went up, they all went, we're going to win 9-0. That was a little more inventive.
Yeah, I think the Barmy Army, I like parts of the Barmy Army shtick, and I certainly enjoyed what they used to do when they'd come out to Australia in huge numbers. It doesn't quite land when it's expats singing "Football's Coming Home" and sort of. They were doing the "Cry on the Telly, you're going to cry on the telly," and I'm thinking to myself, that's a Holly Stand chant from 2019 that no one that was at that test at Sydney would have been there for. They've seen that on the telly, and they're trying to do a dodgy sort of knock-off tribute band version of the Holly Stand.
Yeah.
Not for me.
Cover band version of Ash's Sledge.
That's right. A cover band version of something that was a little bit funny in 2019 for a quarter of an hour and continued through the series. Anyway, for those who do come out and travel with the England team, respect to that, but I don't think that's quite what we've got right now. It's just kind of expat football fans and students, seemingly. Based when I had the binoculars out, it seems like, that's the clientele. Anyway, enough Barmy Army bashing. It doesn't look like Scott Boland's going to play in Hobart.
Didn't look like he was going to play in Melbourne either.
True,
he did.
True. The difference being now he's got rib cartilage injury.
Right.
Was it rib separation or something like that?
Ew.
And they had to jab him up a
Isn't
number
that
of times.
what Prince had?
Yeah. No, he got a couple of ribs taken out.
Separation. He separated himself from his ribs.
Yes, well, I always found it interesting that he's only 5'3" and got a couple of ribs taken out.
Yeah, it's a difficult process.
Yeah, allegedly for some more than others. Started well. There
are reasons people take up yoga in their middle age. I'm just saying that.
I do wonder that when I'm in yoga sometimes, and I watch the very flexible yoga, like male yogis, and watch them. I can't remember what the pose is called, but when your legs are splayed and you can put your head in your crutch pretty much, and I get to about, I barely get beyond the parallel with my neck, and they're going down for the autofilate pose. I'm like, blimey, is that what's going on here?
Some quiet nights in.
Is that what's going on here? Great to bring up autofellatio within 5 minutes of hitting go on the tape. For those who are new to the final word.
I thought that was when you suck off a car.
The exhaust.
I'm exhausted.
Right. Regroup. Scott Boland had lots of jabs to get through the test in the second innings after that elbow went into the ribs and he hit the deck at full force. So
Novak Djokovic, on the other hand, didn't have any.
True, had none and got through as well. For 20 Grand Slams and 1 victory over the federal court. Another major win for Novak Djokovic. Did you see the protesters last night in Melbourne? How they thought the car driving out was him.
What I didn't get was they thought the car driving out was him, and so they started jumping on it and punching it, and they were his supporters. I think that says all you need to know about the level of intellect that's going on in that. There was like some blokes out there with the Greek flag waving it. I think you've got the wrong country champion.
Marcos Bagdatis. Marcos Bagdatis not playing this year.
A bit further. Keep going up.
Yeah,
I know Europe's small, but you're in the wrong spot.
Yeah, I always enjoyed that tradition at the first day of the Australian Open where they would kind of refight the Balkans War with plastic chairs, heaving them at each other, and the tear gas would eventually come out. Yeah. Maybe all that's gone on
ever
with
since the Melbourne Knights got rolled up. There hasn't been enough opportunity for Balkan War conflict. Yeah,
I used to go and watch the Melbourne Knights as a kid when they went from Melbourne, Croatia to the Melbourne Knights. I went to Summer Street a couple of times in the Viduka era, and having grown up in the southeast of Melbourne, I feel quite well versed in the conflict. But I didn't quite understand what was going on last night. That was crazy times. But good to see us.
I've got a friend who's contemporaneously who's Serbian who ended up marrying a Croatian, and it was really a thing. It was like a modern day Romeo and Juliet. There was trouble. There were problems. Thankfully they didn't wind up the same way. But they're happily married. But it took a lot of work between the families to bring them together.
If we get much deeper into this, I'm going to start swearing in Croatian. I'm going to get us in trouble. Let's move on from that.
Oh, can I? Yeah, I'm sure you would have heard the same. But I ran into Simon Kadich at the Sydney Test, and I said, how'd you go? Everyone else has got COVID, and you didn't. And he goes, COVID can't survive in 40-degree Croatian blood.
He was telling us a story. The other day, Kat, about the 2001 trip to Wimbledon, the final where they wore the baggy greens,
and Shane wore the Oakley cap.
And Kat goes on to tell us that but the thing I didn't tell anyone then until the end of the day, I was Barak and Ivanisevic being Croatian. wearing the baggy green. Goes, "Do you good thing." He was always my favourite player. The fiery crow. I mean, is there a bigger divergence between Kat's very fiery personality on the field, as he says himself, that Croatian, thick Croatian blood, compared to the mild-mannered, lovely man that he is behind the microphone? Absolutely. I mean, he can land a punch when he needs to, but, as we know, he's a fabulous fella.
What a final that was as well. Ivanisevic, wild card, 5 sets.
9-7 in the fifth. Went over 2 days, finishing it on the Monday. Yep. That was amazing. I was gutted at the time, but I realise now that Pat Rafter hasn't paid tax here for like 20 years. So,
Australian of the Year, resident of Bermuda or whatever it is.
Our Pat. Sorry, mate. I always think there should be like, when you look for the GIFs on Twitter and you want to say sorry, mate, there should be one of Pat Rafter. Sorry, mate.
Yeah.
I'd use that quite a bit.
Yeah, when you've like fired back a bit too saltily at someone and you've misinterpreted what they were saying and they're like,
sorry, mate.
And you're like, sorry, mate.
So Scott Boland not playing, probably. Or he might play, but he may not. My understanding is that Stokes wants to play. Of course he wants to play. Bairstow wants to play, more likely to play out of the two of them.
Okay.
Joss has gone home. Billings probably playing.
We're definitely playing if Joss isn't there.
Well, but the Pope triangulation, they might have found a way to play Pope. But it sounds like Billings is playing. Billings did media yesterday, and it's really interesting to hear him talk about the conversation he had with Ashley Giles, the director of England cricket. He gets called up to the Test squad, for the third time this year, but the chance to seriously make his Test debut, I should say.
I've been having a lot of arguments with people about this. There are always English people who get very superior about the Australian pronunciation. Guess what the French pronunciation is?
Is it debut?
It's debut.
Debut?
It's not debut.
Yeah, let's just go with debut, our childhood pronunciation. So he was in the squad for the New Zealand series. He was in the squad when Joss took parental leave last year against India. But he actually said to Ashley Giles, I'm only doing it if you kind of promise, if you swear in blood that it's not going to affect my white ball prospects. Because remember, he was going to play in the Caribbean. It's a World Cup year. He missed the 2019 World Cup through injury. I mean, he was there in the UAE this year, and played towards the pointy end of the tournament, but wasn't in the first choice team. This will be a point that'll be discussed.
So this sets him back because he can't be in the Caribbean to start the series.
He's going to miss the white ball series that starts the day after the final Test match.
So he's basically saying, if you're going to make me go to Hobart and run drinks, and it means that I get pushed out of the white ball team, I don't want to do it.
Exactly, and I think he was willing to run drinks and wear the bib again, but it's like, don't let me get pushed in front of if that's what happens. So, but I do think he will get an opportunity. And I've actually forgot this, but he made a wonderful 100 against Australia at Manchester in the one days in 2020. 118 not out, a match-winning effort. And that was against Cummins, Stark, Hazelwood. It wasn't like a white ball attack that Australia were taking over for a Mickey Mousing. It was the only serious cricket that Australia played in 2020 in that winter. So they took their test attack. And Billings excelled against them. So, he's been threatening to be a high-class international cricketer for about 3 years now. Maybe this will be the chance. And, I guess he gets extra credit because he's someone who we all talk to, and he's interesting, and he's a great conversationalist. And, he
comes from the right kind of family, Adam.
Well, I mean, it's. I think that it probably doesn't help. Sorry, I rephrase that. It probably doesn't hurt the fact that he knows his way around the media and so on. So that at times like this, we kind of want him to do well. But we'll see whether he gets the nod. It feels like he probably will.
He's being talked up as the smoky for Test captain if Root chucks it in, which he won't because he's Root and he's got a.
Well, it's a really good story from Nick Holt in the Telegraph overnight saying that Root's not going to be asked to give up the captaincy. So
no, he would never be asked to give it up. It's only if he chose to give it up. And I think after Melbourne, he was probably thinking, maybe I don't want to do this anymore. But I genuinely think he'll get to the end of the series, he'll take a week, he'll take a deep breath, and he'll say, there is no one else to do it. I've got to keep going.
Yeah, and I think that's Holty's yarn, effectively. That they've realised that he remains the best bet to start. I mentioned the rebuild before. I mean, they go to the West Indies and they have 7 Test matches in England, and they don't want to throw someone to the Wolves when they're at their lowest ebb. It might be that he does like one more year. And then when they've sort of recovered a little bit, then he can, if someone steps up...
They need a serious candidate. And, and Billings was the only vaguely credible sort of person floated as a smoky, as someone who's got lots of captaincy experience, maybe he could come in and do that job. But, it's a big ask to come into the team to start your career and also, the legion of England, Sam Billings.
Well, I think it's too big an ask, really. I put this to Athers in our broadcast and he's like, no, believe me, that's not fair.
It would only
You can't
happen
ask
if
a
Root
guy-
quits. If Root just
Yeah.
was like, "No, I can't do
Well,
it."
his perspective was it's just not reasonable to
Yeah.
ask a guy who, the way he articulated it far better than I will, is that you can't properly appreciate just how hard Test cricket is until you're playing it, and you need to know what that experience is like before you're asked to lead a team. So it might be that Billings could play this week and all the way through the English summer, have, let's say, 9 or 10 caps under his belt, Root resigns, and then they go to Billings. That's, I think, more conceivable than the pulling the ripcord at this particular point. Because there's no Boland, or maybe no Boland. And according to Andrew Wu in the paper today, Jumping Jai still got a niggle from Hobart, from Adelaide rather. So whatever
I don't
was
think
going
it's a
on in his
niggle.
calf,
If he's out for a month, it's not a niggle.
Yeah, well that's
you
it.
know?
Whatever had gone on in his calf at Adelaide is potentially enough to keep him out of this Test match. So it could be Nisa back, in all probability. He's the last player in the squad, with Stark to play 5 in a row, which wasn't the plan, and Cummins to play 5 in a row, which I suppose was the plan. So and then Lyon to round out the attack.
Looked like he was tailing off towards the end of Sydney. He'd started to look tired.
So the option they would have in that scenario is to play Schwepson, which I wouldn't be against. But I don't
bowled
think
in
they'll do.
Hobart and a day-nighter.
I don't think it matters, honestly. I just think we're at that point now where Cameron Green or Belfast change in that scenario, and you get some overs into this kid who actually isn't a kid anymore. Swepson's now 26, and you get his cap presented and you get it dealt with before he goes to Pakistan. They won't do that, by the way. They're not going to leave out the best pink ball bowler in the history of Test cricket.
No.
Even if he is tailing off, they'll think he's still good to go and push through.
That's why they should have arrested him in Sydney.
I couldn't agree more.
I do not understand that. Like, give him a break. He's played 3 in a row. He's led the attack. He's played really well.
Player of the series to that point.
And sure, he would say that he doesn't want to rest and he wants to play all 5, but he is a less effective bowler if he plays all 5. And, when you got Steve Smith bowling the last over of the match, would have been handy to have a specialist leg spinner, wouldn't it?
Well, the numbers bear that out as well. Stark averages 23 in the first test of a series and 54 in the fifth, and they get progressively worse. And again, that's the way I explained this on when I was asked about it a couple of days ago was that Stark's got a very athletic action. He bowls at 150 clicks much of the day, and it's very taxing on his body.
You can't expect someone who does that to turn up. And it's not even a 5-test series in the normal sense where you might get 10 days off between one of the games to rest up. It's 3, 4, 5, 6 day breaks between and just straight on to the next one.
Well, this was the argument for him playing at Sydney, was that they got an 8-day break and he barely bowled in the second dig. So the argument was that, well, it's actually more like the extended break you would get in the middle of a series.
He
didn't bowl loads and loads in the second dig, so they were able to kind of manipulate it a little bit. But I thought that was just a little bit too cute, and they could have got that Swepson thing dealt with in Sydney, and it might have paid off. But anyway, it's bygones on that front. Last point I wanted to talk about in our extended intro about the Ashes was that Marnus Labuschagne is tweeting.
Is he?
He's really tweeting.
On the tweets?
On the tweets. On the toot.
Is he in the replies or is he doing his own content?
I don't know. He's in the replies. He's in the tweets big time. So much so that he ran an AMA yesterday for like an hour.
The Australian Medical Association.
He ran the Australian Medical Association. As Brendan Nelson did, you can go from the AMA to the Federal Parliament.
Dr. Karen Goldsworthy stepped aside.
Karen Phelps. I don't think she runs the AMA these days, but she certainly
she's the only AMA president.
Yes,
mentally, she's always
she was very high profile when she did it. Yeah. I think that.
Who's Karen Goldsworthy then? Is she an MP?
I don't know Karen Goldsworthy. That's somewhere deep in your subconscious somewhere. Right. If you can't bring it up after saying it, it's probably a musician from the 90s or something like that.
Sounds like a cellist.
Maybe. I just thought this was quite interesting. So he tweeted when he received the McGilvray medal, and maybe once before that, but it's been like years since he's been that involved on that platform, and now he's he's in the replies. He did an AMA. He put up 2 tweets in quick succession after the draw at Sydney. It's Freudian there. It felt like Australia had lost, but they absolutely did not. The first of which was
Goldsworthy is a writer and academic.
Okay,
Sorry, Karen.
There you go. The first of which was 9 men around the bat. Last session, day 5, how good's Test cricket? And the second one a few hours later was just like, I love cricket, or something like that. I just love cricket. The thought did cross my mind, cynical as it might well be.
Dreadlock holiday. mashup.
Yes. The thought they cross
Minus on vocals. DJ Bravo's made a connect for him.
that maybe he was advised to get a bit involved in social media.
Uh-huh.
You know, I reckon for a bloke who's the number one batsman in the world according to the ICC rankings, hasn't quite a great rep. Like, you know what I mean? Like, you know, he's a bit of a figure of derision, especially in the field. And we've been part of that. I mean, I think I said the other night he should never captain any team ever. And that's kind of how I feel. But maybe it's a bit of brand rehabilitation, showing he's not just some cricket robot, that he's got a bit of spunk about him, which I'm sure he does, by the way. We just haven't been given much of a view of that, because all we see of his personality is him standing at silly point or short leg or at extra cover,
yelling,
being a bit
constantly.
of a menace.
And not constantly,
and not in an aggressive,
not everything's out.
Yeah, not in a mean way, not in an aggressive way, not in a a barking dogs way from South Africa 2014, but in kind of a juvenile way.
Yep.
And thus, I reckon that this might be an exercise in, hey, let's just show the world that you are a grown up, and play along with a few of the guys on Twitter who are not being very nice.
Or at least
ponder.
To at least show some personality beyond appealing for balls that have missed the bat by about 9 inches.
Yeah.
There is a degree of not so great. Like, that's all you see. All you see is the on-field stuff, and if it's all just big appeals for nothing, then you're like, just shush, all right? Just sit down. Stop yelling all the time. Stop making everyone look at you.
Yeah.
It's just, if you don't want to take a run, just don't take a run. You don't need to run every ball. You know, just ease it back.
It's as though he is trying to mimic Steve Smith and now he's overtaken Steve Smith with some of that stuff, and that's just, I mean, I don't know. He's a fabulous cricketer. Hard to criticise a guy who's making runs like he's been making at home since 2019. He's still probably leading the series for runs at the moment, I'd imagine, or near enough to it. So I don't want to get too carried away. But that did strike me as curious in terms of the timing. Last thing before we go to Hobart is that it's meant to rain before the test, but the word on the street is a belter 5-day track. So we'll see if those two things can be consistent. Yeah. If the track's undercover a lot with rain, and there's meant to be rain through the test. I think it starts quite bad and gets a little bit better, but I mean, I suppose we said that about Sydney as well, and it was fairly volatile. Yes, cannot wait to get down there. It's going to be a great occasion for the Tasmanian cricket public. They've sold out the first 2 days. There isn't as much COVID down there, so I don't suppose there'll be that hesitancy that there was at Sydney this week, which is great. Really looking forward to backing in Tassie cricket this week. And I hope the people of Hobart get out there and sell it out, 4 days. Wouldn't that be just a beautiful thing? I can't wait till the sun sets and, those beautiful glamour shots we get at Adelaide. They're all replicated at Hobart. So there's a lot, maybe a dead rubber and all the rest, but there's a fair bit about this week that's attractive. And, let's get down there.